in a herd. They are one and the same thing, and elephants form both. It's just one way of saying a herd. The slight difference comes in is that a herd can be made up of many family groups, all living in association with one another. And the best example that I can think of right now are buffalo. Buffalo herds are made up of very many family groups, all forming a mass, whereas elephants are made up of only usually one family group. Now, it's not uncommon to have many herds of elephants join together and form a massive herd, but it's not a thing that sticks together. They'll form massive herds together, usually all of them related in some way. They can number up to 1,000, I've heard. In the Sabi Sands, the largest herd of elephant that I've ever seen has been about 100 individuals. And I saw that as recently as earlier this year in the Manyeleti, where I saw up to 100 elephant altogether, usually related. They will be going to utilize a resource, either food or water, and then they split apart. Buffalo will never split apart. A buffalo herd made up of many different family groups stays together and moves through the bush together, and will only very infrequently and under very specific conditions or special conditions, abnormal conditions, will those family herds break up from one another. But generally speaking, a herd and a family unit is the same thing, but a herd can be made up of many family units, whereas a family unit is not made up of many herds. Now, these ellies have gone into some really tight bush. You've just got the bulk of this one female here next to us. And I have lost the ability to start the car, which is not too much of a story. I'm sure at some point we will lose sight of these ellies, and then we will be sending you through to Jamie in a little bit, which will allow us to reposition the car and hopefully show you some more of this wonderful elephant herd that we have. And Jamie is ready to show you what she has to show you, and myself and VM are going to try and reposition the car so we can show you some more of these elephants.
In terms of updates from my side, I'm pretty much where you left me, funnily enough. I've done a big circle, found the leopard tracks again. He's still moving south, but it's really, really tricky tracking because the ground is still slightly damp and compacted from the rain that we had. But he's coming this way, so essentially he moved into the Mawati drainage line and popped out on Vulture's Nest Road. And there we are, we've come further south. I think I've missed him crossing Nyala Road South. I've checked there as well, but because the ground is so hard and so damp in places around Nyala Road South, it's part of a natural seep line. I honestly don't know. You could easily have walked across that soil, and it's like tracking, as Steph would say, tracking tissue paper blowing across the ground in places. I'm guessing at the fact that it might be Mbula. It's a guess just purely because we went more east than west. I mean, there's really not much to that. That is supposition. And at this point it becomes guesswork as to where he went as well. So I'm taking his general direction and trying to follow along from there. If it is Mbula, I know that he likes to walk along Mamba Road and out onto the Cheetah cut line boundary. Just from, that's happened a couple of times. It's not really any majorly accurate way of predicting. I wonder if they're not shouting. Unlikely, they're flying away. It was hardy-dars. They've moved behind us. It'll be impossible for Brian to... Thanks, Brian. There's a big tall animal there. I, of course, am just pretending I saw it. No, I really didn't. I had no idea it was there. Thanks, Brian. That's embarrassing. To too distracted by leopards and alarm calls. Hello, girl. Quite a tiny female, which is why I missed her, obviously. She's so small. Nice spots that she's got. They're not really defined spots. They're sort of more shapes. I wonder if she's going to be kind enough to let us get a slightly clearer view of her. Because at the moment, she's right behind the silver cluster leaf. I would like to say in my defense it's quite easy to miss a giraffe. It's really not. There's no defense for that. I just got distracted by leopards, or the idea of leopards. Hello, big girl. You're going to be obliging. You can see how important those eyelashes are as she ducks her head in there. A way of feeling for and protecting her eyes against thorns and sticks. Quiet, Hardy dog. You're the reason I missed the giraffe in the first place. I'm sure we had a question through a couple of days ago about the length of giraffe tongues and whether or not it's true that they can touch the inside of their ear or clean their ears with them. They don't really clean their ears with them, but they could do it if they wanted to. And if we're lucky with this female, she might show us exactly how long that tongue is. I'm still looking for the right word to describe a giraffe tongue. And the level of coordination that it has. Have a look at the way that she is feeding. Mostly with her head down. Obviously it's because the tree that she's feeding on has been pushed over by elephants. But it's actually fairly common, especially with female giraffe, to see them feeding at the lower levels. And it's one of the big arguments for the idea that the neck of a giraffe didn't evolve in order to help them feed higher up. And that in fact, similar to the dinosaurs that were discovered with the long necks, so things like Diplodocus and Brachiosaurus, the idea that it actually evolved as in a similar way to the reason horns evolved, so a reproductive tactic. Got a passenger who wants to bite me. Here we go. Sorry, buddy. He was just crawling up my leg. Gonna let him go on there. Those mandibles. Don't bite me. Oh dear, no. Don't go that way. Put him on my hat so he doesn't stress out as much. Here you go, dude. Come. Come. I'd prefer not to get bitten by those jaws. It's one of the ground beetles, and those mandibles can be very fierce. I prefer not to demonstrate that with my own finger. It's a way of actually wood boring. I've been bitten by them before. It's distinctly unpleasant. I'm going to return him without terrifying my giraffe. Come on, boy. Oh. It's all right, girl. Hi. You gorgeous. You finished with that tree. You're also pregnant. I seem to be on a roll. I'm not intentionally looking for pregnant animals, I swear. I guess it's just that time of year. She's huge. That big girl. I'm gonna stop and munch there. yes, chatting a little bit about the incredibly versatile and flexible tongue of the giraffe. I'm going to move backwards. I think she'll let me. She's quite nice and relaxed. Truly, in a way, it is very similar in construction to the trunk of an elephant. I'm going to stop there just because I don't want her to go running away. Maybe she might give us a demonstration of her tongue. That is sort of what I'm getting at, is the way in which it can bend in different directions and has a level of flexibility. I'll roll back slightly more so we can get the antenna right. Good girl, you're going to be cooperative. Duck behind the quarry bush. But yes, that is sort of what I mean, the way that it can twist and wrap around the various branches and leaves. It's dexterous. She's going to move off backwards. I think I'm going to let her move off. She's going into some relatively thick bush back there. I don't think we're going to get another clear view. Yes, the way that it can twist and curl independently and wrap itself around leaves. It's driving me mad. There's a word. It's not flexible, it's dexterous. Dexterous is what I was looking for. There we go. The level of dexterity that those tongues have, it's not quite to the same extent that elephants do. Obviously, elephants have the most amazing amount of control over their trunks. And that multi-purpose usage, anything from cracking branches and pushing down trees, right to the point of wrapping around and picking up the tiniest stick if they want to. And being able to curl around dirt. One of those magical things. But giraffe and elephant do have those similarities, and they're also, of course, the only two animals that can feed at the height that they do usually feed at. Interestingly enough, the elephant has the highest feeding height. It's higher than any male giraffe. Christy, I don't really know why it is that giraffe are such solitary animals. Could say because it's big and they don't need the protection of the herd, but of course elephants are big and they live in herd structures. And the thing about giraffe is that they're not always completely solitary. So they move between, they sometimes are with other giraffe for company, then they move off on their own, then they come back again. They've got no set herd structure. Quite often you'll see females, or you're more likely to see females together in a group, just because it provides an extra set of eyes and warning. But I don't have an answer for you as to why they evolved as solitary beings versus why they don't live in a herd structure. I honestly don't know. I'd be interested to see if any of you have any theories on it. It's a herd structure or a social structure that's really similar to kudu in its own way. Just completely without any kind of pattern or general rule. Really interesting. Unlike the giraffe, the elephant has a very set social structure, and I believe that Steph is still with his herd of elephants.
We've moved out of that thick bush where those illies were. They were just going into places that will not be good for Rusty. And although these cars can and do some of the most amazing things, it wasn't worth where they were going, and we wouldn't have been able to see them for much longer. So what we've done is we've now come into an area roughly perpendicular to where the leopard tracks that Jamie had were heading, but quite far in front. And the reason why I did this is because you just never quite know when you're going to get lucky. You never quite know how far that leopard walked last night or in the morning. And so myself and VM have come onto an area where quite often we find male leopard tracks. Now, although you can't predict where these animals are going to be at any given time, what you can do is predict the fact that they do behave like we do, and they fall into routines. And if he's in this area, there's a good chance that he'll be walking on this road. And the fact that it rained so hard the day before yesterday means that all his territorial markings have been washed away, and he's going to be needing to come down this road to re-establish his territory, and that's what we're hoping to catch at the moment. That is what Brent thrives on. Georgie in Massachusetts has asked, just while we're having a look at this absolutely gorgeous Franklin, how do we name the leopards? Georgie, it changes from area to area, to be honest with you, but here in the northern Sabi Sands, the privilege goes to the guide who sees the leopard first. So he's the first one to view the cub, and generally is a description of that cub's personality or the area that it was found in. It doesn't necessarily follow any particular format. Although that leopard's name will change as it moves into adulthood. Female leopards tend to stay in the same area or very close to where they were born. Male leopards become nomadic and move off. And they can move into an area who don't know that leopard, and at which point they will give it a new name. Also, once again, based on where that leopard is, or where it likes to, or where it was seen for the first time, or a particular character trait. Now, lovely call. Now, I don't know if you are aware, but the leopards of the northern Sabi Sands are incredibly well documented, with histories on almost all of them. And I'm sure you'd be able to find some information on our website that will be able to give you an idea of just exactly how amazing the information resource is on the leopards here in the northern Sabi Sands. Isn't it such a bizarre call from such a beautiful little bird, that the Coqui Franklin, C-O-Q-U-I, the Coqui Franklin. And it's got such a bizarre scientific name. I'm actually just going to find out exactly. The genus is Turnistus. Turnistus means one who trips with the heel, and it is in reference to the spurs that you can see on the feet. You can see, I think you can see the spurs on the feet. Yes, you can see two tiny little spurs on the males. So Turnistus, and then Coqui, which is, they say, probably an imitation of its call. So Turnistus, Coqui is the genus and species. Coqui is, that doesn't sound like he's saying Coqui whatsoever. So I'm not quite sure what the person who named this bird was smoking at that time. But Turnistus is quite an interesting name. And the birds will fight one another with those spurs, kick at one another. But I've never seen a Coqui Franklin with damage. But I do know that larger birds definitely can do some damage with their spurs, with those little spurs. Putting some decent effort into that call. Call and listen, call and listen. But don't you think that the colors on this little bird are just so fantastic? That honestly is just the most amazing thing. And is that what he's calling about? Is here's some ladies, or is that a different... That looks like a crested spurfowl. It doesn't look like... It doesn't look like a Coqui Franklin. Where are you looking, Viam? I can't even see.
Right behind the other Franklin.
So it's probably about 5 meters away. I'm just picking up my binoculars. And that is an absolute different type of Franklin. That is the crested Franklin. Slightly larger than our tiny little Coqui Franklin that is busy cooling his head off over here. Also just as cryptically colored, although lacking those bold colorings that the Coqui Franklin has. Yeah. We've got some wildebeest busy contact calling in front of us. I think let's go and have a look at them. I'm going to leave the little Coqui Franklin to his termite mound. And we've got some zebra and wildebeest. Lots of general game here this morning. In front here. And impala. So zebra and wildebeest and impala all standing together. What's your head here, Viam? Let's see if it gets a little bit more open here in front. I think I'm trying too much here to try and get everything into the same view for you, but we will try. And we have zebra off on this side. There's a zebra there for you. You do find wildebeest and zebra often with each other, and they use one another to uncover food that they each like. Zebra will eat the top of grass quite readily, and wildebeest like to eat the bottom of the grass. Sorry, it's the other way around. Wildebeest will eat the top of the grass, and zebra will quite readily eat the bottom of the grass. And wildebeest are also a little bit more alert, as are zebra in actual fact. They'll use one another to try and help look for predators. It's a type of symbiosis where both parties benefit, and that type of symbiosis is called commensalism. We'll look at that youngster having a quick feed. Wow, bashing mom over there. Gee whiz. Oh, cute. I don't think there's anyone that is untouched by how lovely a scene it is watching a baby be nursed from their mom. Isn't that lovely? Now, I did know Jamie said that last night she had counted all of the wildebeest in our wildebeest herd, and there were still 10 babies. Some of them even getting some of their horns already. So they're growing up very quick. It's nice to know that they're not all being hammered. So there's a question on whether or not the baby would hurt mom by bashing into her udders like that. I do see, and especially if they start getting their horns coming out, I do see moms definitely look like they take a bit of strain with their babies bashing into their udders like that. I've seen it with kudu as well. But it doesn't look like it does any damage, to be honest. I think they do it more with their mouths and with their front of their nose. And every species of mammal that I've ever seen nurse does that. They bump the udder for milk to come out, or for the mother to start producing milk. It seems to stimulate milk production. And now that these little wildebeest calves are starting to get a little bit older, the obvious question of how long do they nurse for comes into being. They'll nurse for around about 8 months, generally speaking, until their mothers are well underway with their next calves and stop to produce milk. But if the mother loses her calf for whatever reason, they can nurse up to 16 months, obviously until the next cycle when she produces or ovulates again, so that she can fall pregnant again, with most of the calves being born in a synchronized manner or within a few days of one another. And that helps for increasing or decreasing the mortality rate to predation. They sort of bombshell the predators, keep them satiated, and give these little guys just that extra helping hand. And it's worked incredibly well for this particular herd. They've lost no calves to lions or to leopard since their babies were born, which is quite rare. Wildebeest fall exactly in the lion's prey range of between 50 and 300 kilogram, or between 100 pounds and 600 pounds is what lion are naturally built to eat. Look at that. It's really awesome. You can see that these young calves are obviously tasting grass. And why they are so healthy is because they're getting milk and they're eating grass. The best of both worlds. Making most of the green flush from the rain that we had now probably close to 48 hours, just less than 48 hours ago, and which has created a flush of grass that has come over from the roots of the grass. The grass just would have stuck its fresh leaves out of the ground. As much as 48 hours ago, the grass had been burnt here to an absolute cinder by the sun and the drought that is in full swing at the moment. But we've been overcast here for about 48 hours with a lovely rainstorm 2 afternoons ago, and the grass has responded to that. And these calves are making the most of the flush. As you can see, almost a frantic eating going on. Very different skin color to the adults. Right now they're this lovely tan color, dark stripe on their face. When they're adults, they'll turn into a lovely dark gray, black color with stripes on their sides, and are blue wildebeest. Blue or brindled wildebeest is the name that they are. We don't find black wildebeest as a comparison to what else is possible here. We don't find black wildebeest here, just the blue wildebeests. We've got a bit of a battle going on here between with a crested barbet and a lilac-breasted roller pair. Remy in San Diego has asked, how do baby wildebeest know what to eat? And Remy, while we're having a look at this crested barbet, this pair, having a fight with the lilac-breasted rollers for a nesting space, I think. Remy, the baby wildebeest are born precocial, meaning they are covered in hair, their eyes are open, they have full function of all their senses, and literally within a couple of minutes can run. Precocial babies copy their parents almost move for move. And that is exactly what's happened here, is this precocial calf is copying what mom and dad are doing, and will do that for many, many months to learn exactly how to behave, what to do in certain circumstances. Use lions as an example. It's a much better example. Lions being or giving birth to altricial young mean that the female lion who hunts and is quite dangerous, in danger of getting her tummy kicked by any number of animals, and can't be slowed down or encumbered by a big heavy pregnancy, shed their babies relatively quickly, and that doesn't allow the babies to develop as much. It also means that she can have more babies at any one time, and when mortality rates are very, very high, having more babies is sometimes more beneficial than having one fully formed baby. And lions will then give birth to blind, helpless cubs, which take a long time to develop outside of the womb and need to be taught almost everything. Lion cubs watch their parents and are taught. Precocial babies, or babies generally, are not born in groups or in litters. It's not uncommon to have cubs, to have twins, but generally singularly, and are born fully functional, are born with their senses functioning and able to move around very quickly, and very quickly learn the habit of copying their parents, as opposed to lions, which only really become beneficial members of the pride anywhere from about a year to a year and a half. Obviously, wildebeest will very quickly, within 6 to 8 months, will become very beneficial members of the herd. So there's contrasting the two, perhaps not the two best answers. Maybe I should have used birds as a better example. But nevertheless, that is what happens. Now these wildebeest and the zebra seem to have split off from one another. The wildebeest have gone to below the seep line, whereas the zebra have gone to above the seep line. Ooh, and we've lost the ability to start the car again, which is not too much of a problem, as we can still see a zebra's bottom. Now, yesterday we had a question that I wasn't able to answer as to how do you sex zebra from a distance. One of the ways that you can do it is definitely by looking underneath the tail, and at a distance their external genitals are not readily visible. So the way you do it is by having a look at how wide the stripe is, the vertical stripe underneath the tail. If it's a pinstripe, it's a male, and if it's a wide stripe, comparatively speaking, it's a female. And as soon as I can move the car, I will reverse a little bit up the road and I'll show you what we're talking about. For now, we've got that wonderful blaze on the forehead of that zebra. My favorite part of an entire zebra's coat lies on their forehead. I just love that chevron pattern that they have. Now, what's quite interesting about where we are is that we're on a seep line, and seep lines are in this area where you have water from the surface, water from the crests being pushed out at a line. It's sort of our spring, for lack of a better word, where a spring is a point where water is pushed out. This is generally in a patch, and we're right on that spring at the moment. The spring is demarcated by a specific tree, and And that tree is, we'll just wait for VM to, this tree here. This is a silver cluster leaf. And where you find silver cluster leaves, you find seep lines. And what's quite interesting is the zebra have gone above the seep line and the wildebeest have gone below the seep line. And different grasses will grow at both places. Below the seep line, you tend to have better quality grasses. Above the seep line, you tend to have poorer quality grasses. And because fundamentally, wildebeest and zebra have different digestive systems, zebra have hindgut fermentation as a digestion, whereas wildebeest are ruminants. Ruminating animals have to eat a much higher protein diet. They have to go for the better quality grasses. But those grasses are also much more competed for. Whereas the zebra, with their hindgut fermentation and their ability to eat a very wide range of grasses and very coarse grasses, are able to go onto the crests and utilize grass that isn't under that much pressure, under that much feeding pressure from other animals. And that's why we've seen the zebra and the wildebeest splitting from where they are. This dry season means that there's ultra competition for the good grasses, and where they can, animals will try and go to their niches right now, and is why we see two splitting. If there were grasses everywhere and good grasses everywhere, we'll see these animals moving in unison with one another. They wouldn't have to compete for food, and so they can use their herd to look for predators. Jamie is ready for you, so that she can update you on what she's been up to, which will give us the chance for us to reposition this vehicle and show you how to sex zebra from a distance. See you now.
I've slowly worked my way south down to Gowrie Main to try and work out where this leopard has gone to. I've lost the tracks completely. Last tracks I had were heading in this general direction. The soil and the light also doesn't help. The sun's not really out to catch the tracks and make any kind of shadow or reflection. Sorry, it's a good place to look. Just want to double check. I imagined a leopard in a tree. But yeah, the light is a little bit tricky for tracking at the moment, not making our lives any easier. So I'm just trying to guess at where that leopard might pop out. There's certain patches of wet soil that make it almost impossible. Do you get something there, Brian, or is it just hyena? Lots and lots of hyena activity. One very cheerful woodlands kingfisher chirping away. Oh, that's awesome to hear. So we got asked a question about females and male zebras yesterday by Barbara, and Steph has a really good way of showing you, so let's pop over to him.
And Barbara, the zebra, of course, if you're still watching from yesterday, the zebra have, of course, now decided to move off, but watch there, there we go. Just as the zebra wags her tail, you'll notice that the vertical stripe is relatively broad. The one on the far right-hand side has a thinner pinstripe. Have a look when the tail lifts up, you'll see that it's a thinner pinstripe. Although I think that one is a female as well. Yes, that's a female as well. But the nice thing is that we can sex them using the vertical stripe underneath the tail as an indication. That is a wide stripe. Let's see if there's some on the left as well that are walking away from us. Although the branches are making it very difficult. There we go. Please wag your tail. There we go. Nice big wide stripe. A couple of fingers across. That is a female. If it was literally thinner than a finger, it would be a male. Looks like all of these are females that we're watching. There will be a herd stallion here somewhere. And Barbara, if you are still watching, I know it's taken us probably a good, 24 hours to answer your question, but I'm glad that we got to do it in any case. So sexing a zebra using the vertical stripe underneath the tail. Just to recap on that, a nice wide one like you're looking at now, a couple of fingers across, is a female. If it was nice and skinny, less than a finger in width, then it would be a male. Other than that, they're actually quite difficult to sex unless you're looking at them in comparison next to one another. And I think let's carry on going. I know VM is smiling. He's got leopard racing across his forehead. If VM's forehead could light up like a billboard, he would be using some choice language to tell me to carry on driving and find him a leopard. Be flashing lights, leopard. I can show it to you as well. Alright, let's carry on. We are going to be, obviously, looking at prey items is a very good way of finding predators. There's a lot more food out here than there is predators. You can see now we're coming into the open. This area here is the bottom of the seep line. And I'll show you now when we get to where the collection point is. These wildebeest are below the seep line, eating the high protein grasses. Fortunately, there are fewer of them. The zebra have just decided, why even bother, and they're going to the top of the hill to eat the more coarser vegetation. Now this is a beautiful example of a seep line. It's a very healthy seep line. There is the seep where the trees stop. And the reason why the trees have stopped is because this is waterlogged. All this area here is waterlogged in wet seasons, and trees find it very difficult to germinate when it's wet. The water then runs and coalesces where we are right now, and then runs off into the drainage line. And this is where the drainage line starts. It's the birthplace of a river right here. We're in the nursery. We've just moved from the nursery to, I suppose, grade 1. And that's where the drainage line that eventually goes through Philemon's Dip and into the Mulwati starts. And the Mulwati runs then into the Nwati Tsonso, which is probably about 50 yards wide and 3 yards high and deep, and will run into the, let me think now which river it runs into. It runs eventually into the Sabi River, and that is a really big river, and then eventually into the Indian Ocean as a decent river. Here over my head we've got, quite rare, a lilac-breasted roller. VM will probably be able to zoom in so close to it you'll be able to see its eyeball reflection. There we go. You could probably screenshot that and see the reflection of our vehicle in his eye. Yes, absolutely, I can almost see our vehicle in his eyeball. Maybe I could wave and you could even see that we're so close to this lilac-breasted roller. Isn't that wonderful? The reason why he's here there we go, another screenshot, boom. And the reason why they're here is because there's another lilac-breasted roller on the stick just adjacent to this one that has caught something and is busy killing it and eating it. You can notice that their colors are not as brilliant as they were just a few weeks ago, and that is because the lilac-breasted rollers have finished breeding, competing for mates and bringing up their babies. They're actually in very bad condition now because they've had to bring up their youngsters and have been expending a lot of energy on their babies. This one will probably fly off relatively soon. Looks like a youngster. It's actually just getting into its plumage, its adult plumage. You can see that brownish tinge. Nevertheless, though, that brilliant aquamarine blue. What are you doing there? Trying to get something out, clean its beak. On the feathers, and then that lilac breast, which is diagnostic for this roller, just coming out. Cleaning the beak. They're insectivores, although they will eat almost anything. They're carnivorous birds. They eat insects, lizards, mice, snakes, termites, dragonflies, you name it. They'll catch it and try and kill it. Quite a big bird, relatively robust. And they live here year-round. Unlike their cousins, the European rollers, who fly all the way to North Africa and the Mediterranean Rim during our summer, lilac-breasted rollers are a constant beauty. Whoa! Look at, once again, we're so close that you'll be able to get the reflection of our vehicle in this eye. Oh. And the reason why it flew off like that is because a grey go-away bird gave an alarm call for a little predator, a little hawk or falcon that was flying over here, and this bird had to get off the ground in case they were caught unawares. And that was just a way in which other birds giving an alarm call cause a reaction on these birds. Wasn't that wonderful though? Nice to see. Right, let's carry on. For those of you with a keen interest in our weather, clouds look like we've got some low-level clouds scudding in over the horizon, coming in underneath the high-level clouds at the moment. I don't quite know what the rain prediction is, and even if it did predict rain or didn't predict rain, it is notoriously imprecise, as I'm sure you have close to you as well. Weather is very difficult to predict. In fact, some of the largest computers in the world can't even predict weather. There's just too many factors, too much information. Alright, so now we're coming back out of the seapline. And we're going to be turning onto Zoe's Road, another very good road for male leopards, or for the male leopard that is in question. I'm almost convinced it's Mvula who comes in from the Gowrie main side, and basically his entire territory is Djuma, although of late we are seeing him confined to the more western areas as Tingana pushes up Mvula is confined to the more eastern areas and northern areas, and Tingana more to the south and to the west, as Tingana is being forced out of Arathusa by the Anderson male. Leopard territories are like amoebas. Their boundaries are constantly moving. It all depends on their age and their condition and basically where they are. This bird is going to fly, I know, but we're going to try and get it anyway. It's a little emerald spotted dove there, and the emerald spot is on the wing below the eye, directly below the eye. You should be able to get an emerald spot, 2 of them. There we go. And now at this angle we can't see that emerald spot, but it's iridescent. There's coming out on the left hand side. You see the 2, oh, there we go. Anyway, emerald spotted wood dove is what we had over there. Well done, VM, you got that. So we've got emerald spotted wood dove. They got the most beautiful Shangaan name. They're called the Shivambalan. Shivambalan is is the Shangaan name for the emerald spotted wood dove, and is probably in reference to their call. They got this beautiful, mournful call. Alright, so back to our leopard search in this area. I'll be keeping a peeled eye on the road for any signs of this leopard track coming this way. So what I'll do is I'll scan ahead until I see a patch of sand that will hold the track nicely. Search the bush on either side, looking far, middle, near and underneath each tree as much as I can. And then when I get to that patch of sand, I then take the car slightly off of the track and have a look. And the best place to look for leopard tracks is on the inside curve of a road. Next time you're watching leopard with us, leopard will almost always take the shortcut on the inside curve of a road. They don't like walking on the outside curve on these roads. So here, inside curve on my side, on the driver's side, I go slightly off of the track. I look intently at the sand, hopefully trying to convey to you that I know exactly what I'm doing and what I'm looking at. In the hope that we see some leopard tracks, give us a clue as to where this male leopard may be. Good practice to switch off your car every now and again, which is why I did it for that dove. Normally doves would fly off at the first provocation, but we did that was for two reasons. One is that the dove was sitting still and it's nice to show you. Two is that it gives us a chance to listen to the bush with the vehicle off. Quite often monkeys are the giveaways for leopard. Monkeys would tell us where leopard are by alarm calling at them, and they're very vociferous and their sound carries very far. And I would say easily more than half the time that we find leopard out here is due to monkeys calling. You can't hear monkeys calling over the soft purr of this engine. Definitely drowns out monkey calls from far away. So it's a good idea, it's a good practice to get into, to switch your car off when you're looking for leopard. At some point they will disturb the bush around them, whether it's a kudu, impala or monkeys or whatever, and give us a better clue as to where they are. It doesn't look like a male leopard of any sort or leopard of any sort walked down this road, but there is a crossroads coming here. Jamie has just tracked that leopard, and I'm being told that the tracks cross into Torchwood, which is exactly opposite to where we are right now. So much for my educated guess on where we think this leopard could be. I must be honest with you, I must stop getting disappointed with that. I must rather ask you to remind me if I predict where an animal is going to be. I must go absolutely against my instincts and go in the opposite direction. Maybe we'd be lucky enough to pull one out of the bag that way. So knowing that those tracks crossed into Torchwood, we can almost say with a fair amount of certainty that a full-grown male leopard track that we find, full-grown big bulky male leopard track, is there's a good chance that it's Mvula. And although we didn't see him, we do know that he's doing well. He's busy patrolling his territory, doing what he does. And maybe what it can mean is the fact that Tingana, knowing that Mvula might be quite far away, will push into this area to re-establish his markings. just had a question come through from the secret judge. Is there a town close to this place? Yes, the closest town is 90 kilometers away, so about 70 miles away, so just over 70 miles away, and it's called Hoedspruit. Hoedspruit. Hoedspruit is the closest town to where we are right now, and is about 60-70 miles away. And on that note, we are going to be crossing over to Jamie, who's got something to tell you.
So after a morning spent crisscrossing the various roads in a sort of a grid pattern, guessing and getting very lucky, unfortunately it looks as though our male leopard has crossed east into Torchwood. He popped out just to the east of us on Cheetah, walked south and then went straight into Torchwood. Makes me think or suspect that it was probably Mbula that we were tracking. That's, again, guesswork, but it's more likely to be him on this side of the property. He spends a lot more time around Torchwood. You're not going to stay, are you? You're going to stay? We're being very cooperative. Completely frozen. Hoping that we can't see them. He's just he's moving there. Hello, girl. Should I run? Should I not run? Not quite sure what to do there. You can see a little black strip down her face. Here she goes. There's always a little bit of indecision in the way that little antelope move when they run away from you. They run in sort of stops and starts. You can see she's relaxed a little bit. As soon as she gets into comfortable thick bush, then she stops and has a look backwards. Make sure that we're not following her. Alrighty, well, our leopard is on a walkabout onto Torchwood. Must have been Mbula, I'm fairly certain it was. It was interesting tracking him though and trying to predict the different pathways that he was going to take and where he was going to walk to. There was a lot of luck involved as well with figuring it out, but it was still fascinating to watch. And he actually walked very definitely in certain directions. Is he following a regular patrol route? I'm on my way now to Buffelshoek Dam. I'm hoping that Karula might have decided to make an appearance, pop out of Buffelshoek at some point. She's such a mystery, that one. She'll disappear for a couple of days and then pop out completely in the opposite direction of where you expected her to be. I remember once having a sighting with her sitting in a jackalberry tree close to the Buffelshoek Dam, and the next morning she was all the way at the Gowrie repeater. And I mean, it was a sort of space of about 8 hours that she walked easily 5 kilometers and probably more given the way that she bobs and weaves. The good news is that those tracks from Mbula were fairly fresh. The white-tailed mongoose tracks were on top of them, so it was from some time, probably in the middle of last night, that he walked down that road. Probably just after Deb heard him at the Djuma Dam camera. It was probably about an hour or two after that he wandered down that road. I'm fairly certain it was him sawing. Could also, of course, have been Karula. So both males and females will do that territorial sawing sound that is a leopard's roar. It's time to go and investigate Buffelshoek Dam and see what's happening there. I haven't been there since the rains. I know Steph was there. He said that there were 2 puddles. I wish it would rain again. It definitely has that feel. It's actually genuinely nippy, isn't it, Brian? Very cold. Kid Blues Band, you were wondering how much rain we've had in the last 2 days. I suspect that one big rain that we had 2 days ago probably gave us about maybe 10 mils, I would guess, roughly. Obviously that differs from in different parts of the property, but I think probably about on average 10 mils. And it hasn't rained since then, if I'm completely honest. There were smatterings that afternoon after the big rain, and then after that, that was it. It was done from there. So it hasn't rained since then, unless I missed something during the night, but I don't think I did. It was just that one day that we had the rain. It's not really, I mean, it's enough certainly to come as a relief. It's definitely made life a little bit nicer for the animals out here. At least they've got some groundwater to drink from. We saw the kudus drinking from the puddles earlier. So it's definitely taken the pressure off a little bit, but it's not really good enough to alleviate the true effect that the drought's going to have in the next few months. Let's see what's happening at Buffalo's Hook. Hey, there's that buffalo. I'll explain the metal netting in a moment. Oh no, don't walk away, buddy. He's such an instantly recognizable character. There he goes, Brian. He's the one with all the ox pickers up a little bit and to the right. Yeah, that one. Look at him. He reminds me, I need him to look properly at the screen so I can show you what I mean. His boss goes right down to the bottom of his eyes, or to the top of his eyes, sorry, and it's a really straight line. Oh, he's not being cooperative. Hello, boys. I'm fairly certain this is the same group of Duggar boys that was here yesterday with Steph. The puddles have all but dried up. Ooh. And these buffalo are definitely accompanied by an increase in flies that are attempting to sit on us. I think that one of the buffalo just sneezed. That was a very odd sound I just heard. Hello, boy. A little bit earlier, I mean, this particular individual has magnificent horns. A little bit earlier, we saw that buffalo with the broken horn. And baseball 21, you were wondering if a horn is broken, if it will ever grow back. And the answer is no, it won't. That won't happen. It's bone and keratin, and although it might have a little bit of stunted further growth, possibly, once a horn is broken on an antelope species or a bovid like the buffalo, it will never grow back. It does some serious damage to the growth points. And just quickly, since I'm sure it's in your screen and you might want to understand exactly what's going on there in terms of these metal packings, this is a work in progress. It is known as a gabion. And what they're doing essentially is, because around these dam sites, what happens is the animals congregate around here and they take away all of the plant material through grazing and through movement that would keep the topsoil in place, and you get huge erosion channels that start to develop as the topsoils around the dams wash away. And so what the guys have been doing is they've been creating this netting cover with the rocks inside it to pack up the erosion parts and protect the sides of the dam a little bit. And obviously it's not always going to look that way. It's a work in progress. So once they've managed to pack that in, then they'll cover it with sand, and it just helps to stop the effects of erosion out here. And since this is an artificially constructed dam, it therefore comes with the additional responsibility of protecting the area around it. just shift around to see what he's doing. I think he's trying to get water in that puddle. And while I do... Wait, okay. Looking a little bit thin, actually. While I do that, Naomi, you were wondering what the lifespan of a buffalo is. And for the big males like this one, once they reach the sort of age of around 8 or 9, they start to leave the herd and wander off on their own. And their lifespan is up to about 13 to 15 years of age in the wild. They don't get much older than that. They start to age, their teeth start to wear down, and they start to lose condition. And also you'll find that most of the animals here are carriers of tuberculosis. Oh, his back leg sunk into the mud there. And it doesn't affect them in a huge way, but it does start to cause their condition to deteriorate as they get older. Hey boy, it's all right. Shame, all your water's gone already, huh? Not much left anymore. That's very sad to see. Didn't last very long. We really needed 2 weeks of a good solid drizzle to start filling up these dam sites. With the ever-present oxpecker hanging off his right ear. And apparently getting a little bit too friendly with it. Thank you for Deanna Ray, who's provided us with a bit of more information about the grackle that we chatted about earlier. So a relative of the orioles in that sort of family, and quite closely related to the starlings that we see, which is what we suspected originally. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to go and have a look at pictures of them when I get home, just so that I know for future reference. And I'm hoping, while we're talking about starlings, that this particular individual is going to be obliging and give us a nice view of it. They've got such a stunning glossy color, and it's coming out really nicely in this light. Come on, buddy. Aw. There you go. You can see, at least vaguely, that iridescent sheen. So when there's no sunlight or no light, they look completely black. Chirping there. And that that iridescent effect is created not by any kind of pigments except melanin, which is black, but it's the way that the keratin along the feathers is layered to create a refraction of light that essentially bounces back only those blue and purple wavelengths of light. So that's the color that the starling takes on. And this to me looks like a greater blue-eared starling. It's got a slightly darker tinge behind the eye. You can see him chirping there. Look at that beautiful gloss. Chirping away quite happily. Doing a little jog. Look at the way his larynx works when he calls. That's so fascinating. I've never really looked at that before. Making poor Brian's life difficult, dashing as he is. So interesting to watch. He's about to move out of view. Beautiful bird to see. Our Duggar boys are still looping around the back of the dam. They haven't had much in the way to drink here. Now, just while we're still looking at these buffalo, to finish off with the question about horns being broken, Shrub, who's watching on YouTube, you were wondering how that might happen. And for the most part, it's caused when buffalo bulls fight and spar. And I mean, you can imagine the force involved when 900 kilograms, so close to 2,000 pounds, worth of buffalo bull moves at 15 meters per second and then bashes heads. You can imagine how if that caught a horn at the wrong angle, it would cause such serious damage, and it could actually potentially break it off. I also quite often suspect, and I could be wrong about this, but I suspect that it occurs when there's a slight crack or fault in the bone or in the way that the bone is developed. I think that certain animals are more disposed to having broken horns than others. Just like they have genetically different shapes to their horns. Some have a slightly bigger curl, some have slightly stockier horns, and some extend further away from the ears. I suspect that they're also born with genetic fault lines and cracks within the bone of the horn itself. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, particularly if they've suffered some kind of injury as a calf when those horns are still solidifying and developing. I imagine that also causes weaknesses in the horns themselves. I could be wrong, it's just a suspicion that I have. I just think certain individuals are more disposed towards breaking horns, and you quite often see bulls with 2 broken horns. It's really the only animal out here capable of, or the most likely scenario in which a horn would be broken off is between a fight between 2 males. It's plausible that it might happen if they ran full speed away from something and maybe hooked their horn on something like a tree. Plausible but unlikely. They're fairly good at navigating their way through the various obstacles out here. Trying to see, I really wanted to try and introduce you to the buffalo character that I was talking about, but he hasn't been very cooperative. He's always slightly more skittish than the rest of the bulls in the group whenever we see him. And he reminds me very strongly, I can't work out who it is, but there is some celebrity that he reminds me of with his flat boss. It's quite unique. I've never seen, there he is. I've never seen a buffalo like it. We've seen him before. I mean, he's quite handsome in his own way. He's perfectly symmetrical. I can't decide what he reminds me of, though. I'm open to suggestions. We're looking at a group of Duggar boys, so a group of older males, but forgive me for possibly not getting your name correct. Mahosh Trahosh, or something along those lines. You wanted to know why the females also have horns. And the answer to that is, it's a bit complex, but we'll look at the way that the animals live and the habitat that they live in. And although it's never been completely proved, there's a fairly strong correlation between the two. So, for example, a species like a kudu or an inyala, they live in thickly vegetated areas. So the horns are used for 2 things. One is for competing with other males for access to females, and the other is defense of the animal itself from predators. So for kudu and inyala, the males still need to have the horns because they need to compete with other males for access to females, whereas the females don't. And in fact, for those females, oh, there's some more Duggar boys coming. For those females, those horns would actually be a disadvantage because they'd get caught in the vegetation and the foliage. But for animals like buffalo that live more out in the open, the females don't rely on hiding behind vegetation. Ooh. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how horns get broken. I have no idea what that was about. A little bit too much in his personal space. But that just goes to show you how fast buffalo can move when they really want to. That was along a very narrow dam wall, and that buffalo didn't even blink an eyelid. It covered that space so fast. That came as a bit of a surprise. Didn't expect that. Sure. Okay. Just a skirmish between buffalo bulls. It does happen fairly regularly. We often see them butting horns. So the horns on the females they're much less well developed than the males. They don't have thick bony bases at the bottom of them like these gentlemen do. There's my favorite buffalo. It's definitely my favorite Duggar boy. But they do have horns, and they're there for a reason, to protect the buffalo against any kind of attack by predators. But because they aren't used for fighting in the females, they're not as well developed as they are in the males. Shame. And the poor gentleman that got chased has just emerged off the other side, looking distinctly disgruntled. Fine, if you guys don't want me, I'm going to hide behind this tree. Shame. He obviously doesn't feel welcome to go and join them at the dam. Got a slightly defeated looking body posture. Oh, there comes the rest of them. There's the aggressor there, still wandering along the dam wall. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we spent our morning tracking leopard. You win some, you lose some. In this case, he just happened to pop over into a different property. But some really interesting discoveries that we've made at that hyena den. And interesting to see if that theory proves to be correct. I don't think we'll ever know exactly what went on. But I do think that very sadly, that female has lost her cub or cubs at some point over the last few days, and I think that's actually why Pretty and Corky moved their cubs across to the Imbubu Road den. So an interesting sort of conclusion, if you could call it that, to that entire story and to that saga. Well, big thank you to you all for joining us. It's been a wonderful morning and I've enjoyed having you. Thank you to Brian as well for his amazing camera work as always, as well as his company, and to the lovely ladies in FC. I'm going to send you back across to Steph for the last few moments of our sunrise safari, but have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and don't forget to join us in a couple of hours for the sunset safari. Cheers for now.
Well, I hope wherever you are in the world that you are putting your hands together today so that we can get some rain here. That is what we need more than anything else today. And it's been a fantastic morning. Liam and I have had an elephant morning, and then we spent some decent time with some zebra and wildebeest. It's been quite nice. For the rest, we've just been looking for leopard or lion tracks. One last question before we say goodbye from Sarah in Ohio, who wanted to know, has Mvula been seen anywhere close to Anderson? Not to my knowledge, Sarah, to be quite honest, but that is not saying much at all. I don't keep much contact with the reserves around us, even though I should. Brent would be able to answer that question a lot easier than I would. And but yeah, not to my knowledge, I think they're too far away. But from myself and VM, we just want to say thank you very much for your input today. And we've had a lot of fun, and I hope that you have. And we'll see you on this afternoon safari.